The rain hit the pavement like bullets, and Zuri Okoye was running out of time. Her alarm hadn't gone off. The bus had broken down 3 blocks from her apartment. Her phone was at 12% battery, and the interview that could change everything, started in exactly 17 minutes across a city that suddenly felt designed to keep her exactly where she was. Broke, exhausted, and invisible. She ran harder, her worn sneakers slapping against wet concrete, her carefully pressed blouse already soaked through. People turned to stare as she passed, their eyes following her with that particular mixture of curiosity and judgment she'd learned to ignore in the 3 years since she'd left Lagos for this cold, indifferent city. A black woman running through the rain in business clothes was apparently still a spectacle worth watching. Zuri didn't care. She couldn't afford to care. This interview was for a junior analyst position at Meridian Financial, and it was the first callback she'd received in 8 months of applications. 8 months of rejection emails that all said the same thing in different words. "You're not what we're looking for." 8 months of her mother's voice on crackling phone calls, asking when she'd send money home, when she'd make something of the education they'd sacrificed everything to give her. The office building came into view, glass and steel reaching toward a gray sky that seemed to press down on her shoulders. Zuri checked her phone. 14 minutes late. Her heart sank like a stone. She slowed to a walk, trying to catch her breath, trying to salvage some dignity from this disaster of a morning. That's when she heard it. A child's cry. Not the angry wail of a tantrum, but something else. Something that made her stop despite everything. Despite the interview, and the time, and the fact that she couldn't afford one more setback. The sound came from a narrow alley between buildings, where delivery trucks usually parked. Zuri hesitated at the entrance, every practical cell in her body screaming at her to keep walking. But the crying continued, softer now, hitched with the kind of hopelessness that no child should know. She found him huddled against a brick wall, maybe 6 years old, with dark hair plastered to his forehead and tears streaming down round cheeks. His clothes were expensive, she could tell that much, but rumpled and dirty, like he'd been sitting there for hours. When he looked up at her, his eyes were swollen and terrified. Zuri crouched down, keeping her distance, making herself small and unthreatening. "Hey," she said softly, "are you okay?" The boy shook his head, fresh tears spilling over. "Are you lost?" He nodded. "Do you speak English?" Another nod, smaller this time. Zuri glanced back toward the street, toward the office building where her future was currently evaporating. 20 minutes late now. Even if she ran, even if they still agreed to see her, she'd arrive looking like she'd swum across the river. First impressions were everything, and hers was already destroyed. She looked back at the child and made a choice that would change her life, though she didn't know it yet. "Okay," she said, moving closer. "My name is Zuri. What's your name?" "Minjun," he whispered. "That's a beautiful name. Minjun, I'm going to help you, okay? But I need you to tell me what happened. Where are your parents?" The boy's face crumpled. "I don't know. Father had a meeting. I was in the car with Uncle Jin, but I had to use the bathroom, and I opened the door. And then I got confused, and I couldn't find the car again. And it's been so long, and nobody came, and shh, it's okay." Zuri sat down beside him, no longer caring about her clothes, or the rain, or anything, except making this small person feel safe. "You did nothing wrong, you hear me? Nothing. Your father is looking for you right now, I promise. Adults just take a little while sometimes to figure things out." Minjun leaned against her, and Zuri wrapped an arm around his shoulders. He was shivering. She took off her blazer, the one she'd ironed so carefully this morning, the one that was supposed to make her look professional and capable, and draped it around him. "Are you hungry?" she asked. He nodded against her shoulder. There was a convenience store on the corner. Zuri pulled out her wallet, looking at the bills that were supposed to last until Friday. She had exactly $43 to her name until her next shift at the restaurant where she worked nights. She bought him a sandwich, a juice box, and a chocolate bar. She bought herself nothing. They sat on the curb outside the store, under the awning that provided some shelter from the rain. Min-jun ate slowly, methodically. His crying subsided into occasional hiccups. Zuri kept one arm around him and checked her phone with the other. 3 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize. Probably Meridian Financial. Probably wondering where she was. She didn't call back. What would she say? "My father is very important," Min-jun said suddenly, around a mouthful of sandwich. "Everyone is always very serious around him. But he's sad a lot. I think he misses my mother." Zuri's chest tightened. "Where is your mother, sweetheart?" "She died when I was 3. I don't remember her much. Sometimes I think I do, but Father says those might be dreams, not memories." "I'm so sorry." Min-jun looked up at her with eyes too old for his face. "Why did you stop? Most people walk past. I was here for a long time, and lots of people walked past." The question hit Zuri harder than it should have. "Because you needed help," she said simply. "And because maybe I needed to help you. Does that make sense?" He considered this seriously. "I think so. You have a kind face. I knew you would stop." Zuri smiled despite everything. "Well, you're very smart to—" The screech of tires cut her off. A black SUV slammed to a stop in front of them, followed by 2 more. Doors flew open, and suddenly there were men in dark suits everywhere, talking rapidly in Korean, surrounding them. Min-jun jumped to his feet. "Uncle Jin!" One of the men, 40s, stocky, with an earpiece and the bearing of someone used to giving orders, rushed forward and dropped to his knees in front of the boy, speaking urgently in Korean. Min-jun responded in the same language, and Zuri caught her name in his rapid explanation. Then another car pulled up, sleeker, quieter, more expensive than the others. The back door opened, and a man stepped out. Zuri knew money when she saw it. She'd cleaned enough luxury apartments, served enough tables at high-end restaurants to recognize the particular confidence that came with never having to think about where your next meal would come from. This man wore it like a second skin. He was tall, maybe late 30s, with features that would have been handsome if they weren't currently arranged in an expression of barely controlled fury. His suit probably cost more than Zuri made in 6 months. His eyes scanned the scene, the SUVs, his security team, his son, and finally, inevitably, landed on her. Zuri stood up slowly, very aware of how she must look. Soaking wet, no jacket, sitting on a curb with his child. She lifted her chin anyway, meeting his gaze steadily. Min-jun ran to his father, but when the man tried to pull him close, the boy pointed back at Zuri. "She helped me. She's nice, Father. She gave me food and waited with me." The CEO, because that's clearly what he was, said something to his security chief in Korean. The man, Uncle Jin apparently, moved toward Zuri. "Thank you for staying with the young master," Jin said in accented English. His tone was formal, assessing. "We will of course compensate you for your time and trouble." The words landed like a slap. Compensate. As if she'd done this for money. As if kindness was a transaction. "That won't be necessary," Zuri said quietly. "I'm just glad he's safe." The CEO was watching her now with narrowed eyes, still holding Min-jun's hand. He spoke to Jin again in Korean, and though Zuri didn't understand the words, she understood the tone. Suspicious. Questioning. Jin turned back to her. "Mr. Park would like to know how you came to be with his son." "I heard him crying," Zuri said, addressing the CEO directly, even though he hadn't spoken to her. "I stopped to help. That's all." "That's all?" The CEO's English was perfect, barely accented, cold as the rain still falling around them. "You expect me to believe you just happened to find my son and waited with him out of pure altruism. Zuri felt heat rise in her cheeks, anger mixing with humiliation. I don't expect you to believe anything. I heard a child who needed help. I helped. You're welcome, by the way. Minjun tugged on his father's sleeve. Father, she bought me food with her own money. She gave me her jacket. She was going somewhere important, and she stayed with me instead. The CIO's expression flickered. Surprise, maybe. Or suspicion deepening. Where were you going? That's none of your business. You're soaking wet. You look like you were running. Because I was. To a job interview that I'm now 45 minutes late for, thanks to stopping to make sure your son was okay. So if we're done here, I'd like my jacket back, and I'll be on my way. But Minjun clutched the blazer tighter. Can she come with us? Please, Father. She's nice. Everyone's always so scared of you, but she's not scared. Minjun! Please. The CEO looked at his son, and something in his face softened almost imperceptibly. Then he looked back at Zuri, and the shutters came down again. Jin will drive you home, he said, and compensate you appropriately. I said I don't want your money. Everyone wants money. Name your price. The casual cruelty of it, the assumption that everything and everyone could be bought, made Zuri's hands shake. You know what? You can keep the jacket. Consider it a gift from Minjun. I hope you find some way to teach him that not everyone in the world is for sale. She turned to walk away, but Minjun's voice stopped her. Wait, I don't even know your whole name. Zuri looked back at the little boy who'd made her sacrifice her one chance, and somehow she couldn't regret it. Zuri Okoye, she said. Take care of yourself, Minjun. Then she walked away, leaving the CEO and his fleet of cars, and his money, and his suspicion behind her. The walk home took an hour. By the time Zuri climbed the 3 flights to her studio apartment, she was shivering uncontrollably. Her phone was dead, and she was pretty sure she'd just destroyed her entire future for a child she'd never see again. She peeled off her wet clothes, took a scalding shower, and tried not to cry. She failed. That night, she put on her uniform for the restaurant, black pants, white shirt, comfortable shoes, and went to work. She smiled at customers, took orders, cleared tables, and pretended her feet didn't hurt and her heart wasn't broken. At 11 p.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Miss Okoye, this is Jin Park, head of security for the Park family. We spoke this morning. Zuri's heart stuttered. Is Minjun okay? He's fine. He's been asking about you all day. A pause. Mr. Park would like to speak with you. Are you available tomorrow at 10 a.m.? For what? He'd like to discuss a potential opportunity. Zuri's grip tightened on the phone. What kind of opportunity? It would be better discussed in person. I can send a car. No car. Tell me where, and I'll get there myself. Jin gave her an address in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. Of course. After she hung up, Zuri stared at her phone for a long time. Every instinct told her to ignore this, to not show up, to protect herself from whatever game the CEO was playing. But she thought about Minjun's face, his small hand in hers, the way he'd defended her, to his father. And she thought about her bank account, her mother's expectations, the rent due in 2 weeks. She would go, but she would go on her own terms. The Park residence wasn't a house, it was a statement. Modern architecture, all glass and clean lines, perched on a hill overlooking the city like a throne. Zuri walked past the security gate after Jin confirmed her identity, her second-hand dress suddenly feeling even cheaper than it was. A woman in a crisp uniform answered the door and led her through rooms that belonged in magazines, not real life. Everything was perfectly arranged, perfectly clean, perfectly empty of any warmth or personality. She found Minjun first. He was in a playroom the size of Zuri's entire apartment, surrounded by enough toys for a dozen children, playing alone. When he saw her, his face lit up like sunrise. "Zuri, you came." He launched himself at her, and she caught him, hugging him tight. Over his head, she saw the CEO standing in the doorway, watching them with an unreadable expression. "Minjun," he said quietly. "Let Miss Okoye breathe." The boy stepped back but grabbed her hand. "Did father tell you? You're going to be my companion. You're going to stay with me and teach me things and— Minjun." The CEO's voice was sharper now. "Go with Mrs. Chen for your lessons. I need to speak with Miss Okoye privately." The boy's face fell, but he obeyed, dragging his feet toward the door. He looked back once, hopefully, and Zuri gave him what she hoped was a reassuring smile. When they were alone, the CEO gestured to a chair. "Please, sit." "I'd rather stand." "As you wish." He moved to stand by the window, silhouetting himself against the city view. Power play. Zuri had seen it before. "I investigated you." "Of course you did. You're educated. Business degree from Lagos, honors. You've been in this country for 3 years, working jobs far below your qualification level. Multiple visa applications denied. You're barely making rent." Each word was a small violence, her struggles laid bare by a stranger. Is there a point to this humiliation, or are you just showing off your research skills? His eyes flashed. "The point is that I'm offering you a job, a real one, as Minjun's companion and tutor. Live-in position, private quarters, generous salary. Why? Because my son hasn't smiled like that in 2 years. Because every nanny I hire treats him like a task to complete. Because he trusts you, and I don't know why. But I'm willing to pay for it." "Pay for it," Zuri repeated, "like you pay for everything else." "Yes. That's how the world works, Miss Okoye." "Not my world." He turned to face her fully. "Then you're either a liar or a fool. I'm offering you stability, legal employment, a path to citizenship if you last a year. I'm offering you a way out of whatever barely above poverty existence you're clinging to. And you're standing here being self-righteous about it." The words hit home because they were true. Zuri took a breath, steadying herself. "What are the terms?" "You'll live here. You'll be available to Minjun from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays, with weekends negotiable. You'll help with his studies, provide companionship, and serve as a positive influence. You'll be paid monthly, with benefits. You'll sign a standard NDA regarding family matters. And if I say no?" Something crossed his face. Disappointment, maybe, or frustration. "Then you walk away, and we never speak again. But Minjun will ask about you. Every day. And eventually, he'll stop asking. And he'll go back to being the quiet, lonely child he was before you showed him that kindness still exists in the world." He paused. "So yes, Miss Okoye, I'm buying your time. I'm buying your compassion. Because my son needs it, and I have no idea how to give it to him myself." The honesty of that last admission surprised her. For the first time, Zuri saw past the wealth and the coldness to the man beneath. Widower, a father who was failing, someone just as lost as she was, in a different way. "I'll need Sundays completely off," she said. "And if I feel Minjun is being harmed in any way, emotionally or otherwise, I walk. No NDA will stop me from protecting him." "Agreed. And you don't get to investigate me ever again. You want to know something about me, you ask. To my face." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Agreed. Then I'll take the job. For Minjun. Not for you. I wouldn't expect otherwise." He pulled out his phone. "Jin will show you to your quarters and provide the contract. You can start Monday." "I start now," Zuri said. "If I'm doing this, I'm doing it right. And that boy in there just got his hopes up. I'm not making him wait 3 more days." This time, the CEO did smile. Small, brief, but real. "As you wish, Miss Okoye." The first weeks were an adjustment. Zuri moved her few belongings into quarters that were nicer than anywhere she'd ever lived. She learned the house's rhythms, its rules, the invisible boundaries that separated the family from the staff. She learned that the CEO's name was Jae Sung, though she still thought of him as the CEO. She learned that he worked constantly, traveling frequently, present but absent in the way of parents, who show love through provision rather than presence. And she learned Min-jun. The boy was brilliant, sensitive, starved for affection. He absorbed her attention like a plant in drought-absorbing rain. They did his schoolwork together, but they also talked. About everything and nothing. About his mother, whose pictures filled his room, but whose memory was fading. About Zuri's home in Nigeria, the family she missed, the dreams she'd had before they got lost in survival. "Do you think dreams can come back?" Min-jun asked one afternoon. They were in the garden, the first warm day after weeks of rain. "I think dreams change," Zuri said. "But that doesn't mean they die. Sometimes they just become different. Dreams. What's your dream now?" She looked at this child who'd somehow become the brightest part of her days. "Right now? My dream is making sure you know you're loved, that you matter, that the world is bigger and kinder than these walls." "Father loves me," Min-jun said, but there was a question in it. "I know he does, sweetheart. But sometimes people don't know how to show love the way we need to receive it. That's not your fault, and it's not really his fault either. It just is." She didn't know Jae Sung was standing in the doorway until he cleared his throat. His expression was carefully neutral, but something flickered in his eyes when he looked at her. "Min-jun," he said, "go wash up for dinner." When they were alone, he moved closer. "You're good with him. He makes it easy. No, you make it look easy. There's a difference." He hesitated, seeming uncertain for the first time since she'd met him. "I wanted to thank you, properly this time, without the suspicion and the accusations. You're welcome. I also wanted to apologize for that first day. I thought—" He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "I've learned to assume the worst of people. It's kept me safe. But it was unfair to you." Zuri studied him. He stood differently here in his home, without the armor of his suits and his boardrooms, more human, more vulnerable. "You're forgiven," she said. "But Jae Sung? Min-jun doesn't need safe. He needs loved. There's a difference." He flinched as if she'd struck him. "I'm trying." "I know. That's why I'm still here." Something passed between them in that moment. Recognition, maybe. Or understanding. Two people from different worlds, both trying to do right by a child who deserved more than their broken pieces. Zuri turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "What you said to Min-jun, about dreams changing." He was looking out at the garden, not at her. "Do you really believe that?" "I have to," she said simply. "Otherwise, what's the point of any of this?" He nodded slowly. "Thank you, Zuri." It was the first time he'd used her first name. The months that followed developed their own rhythm. Min-jun flourished under Zuri's care, his laughter filling spaces that had been silent too long. Jae Sung remained distant, but present, watching from doorways, listening to the stories Zuri told his son about Lagos markets and monsoon seasons and the grandmother who'd raised her after her own parents died. She began to notice things. The way Jae Sung's shoulders relaxed when he came home to the sound of Min-jun's laughter. The way he started joining them for dinner more often, initially silent but gradually, hesitantly, joining the conversation. The way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. And she noticed her own reactions, the way her pulse jumped when he entered a room, the way she'd started to see past the walls he'd built to the loneliness underneath, the way kindness looked on him when he let it show, rare and precious and beautiful. "Father smiled today," Min-jun said one night as Zuri tucked him in. A real smile. I saw it. That's wonderful, sweetheart. He was looking at you. Zuri's hand stilled on the blanket. Minjun, it's okay, the boy said seriously. I like when he smiles. I like when you're both here. It feels like maybe we're not so broken anymore. Tears pricked Zuri's eyes. She kissed his forehead. You were never broken, Minjun. Neither of you. Just hurt. There's a difference. But later, alone in her room, she let herself acknowledge the truth she'd been avoiding. She was falling for Jae-sung Park. For his rare smiles and his quiet strength and the way he was slowly, painfully learning to open his heart again. It was impossible and inappropriate and dangerous to everything she'd built here, and she had no idea what to do about it. The first crack appeared at a company dinner. Jae-sung had asked, not told, asked if Zuri would join him. A charity gala, he'd said. Minjun would be there briefly for a photo opportunity, and it would be good to have her there to keep him comfortable. She'd agreed before understanding what she was agreeing to. The stares, the whispers, the barely concealed curiosity and disdain from people who saw her dark skin, her cheaper dress, her presence at Jae-sung's side, and immediately calculated her worth. She heard the word in Korean that she'd learned meant gold digger. Heard it whispered behind fans and champagne glasses. Saw it in the eyes of women who looked at her and saw competition, or worse, confirmation of their own prejudices. Jae-sung noticed. His hand found the small of her back, protective and possessive. Ignore them, he murmured. They're not worth your time. But Zuri couldn't ignore them. Because they were right about one thing, she didn't belong here. She was an employee, a companion for his son. Whatever she'd started to feel, whatever she thought she'd seen in his eyes, this world would never accept it. Never accept her. She made it through the evening with her dignity intact, but barely. At home, she went straight to her quarters, not even stopping to say goodnight to Minjun. The knock came an hour later. Jae-sung, still in his tuxedo, holding 2 glasses of wine. May I come in? She should say no, should maintain the boundaries that were already dangerously blurred. Instead, she stepped aside. He handed her a glass and sat in the chair by her window, not on the bed, respecting space even as he invaded it. I'm sorry about tonight. It's not your fault how people think. No, but it's my fault for putting you in that position, for asking you to be something you didn't sign up to be. And what's that? He looked at her, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. Mine, he said quietly. I asked you to stand beside me as if you were mine, when you're an employee. When you're here for Minjun. It was inappropriate and unfair, and I'm sorry. Zuri set down her wine with a shaking hand. And if I wanted to be yours, if I was stupid enough, crazy enough to feel... She stopped, unable to finish. Jae-sung stood slowly, moving toward her like she was something precious that might break. Then we'd both be crazy, because I think about you constantly, because I haven't felt this alive in years, because my son loves you and I... He stopped, his control finally cracking. I'm falling in love with you, Zuri, and I have no right to, but I can't seem to stop. She should step back, should remember the power imbalance, the impossibility, the 1,000 reasons this was wrong. Instead, she closed the distance between them. Then don't stop, she whispered. He kissed her like she was air, and he was drowning. Soft and desperate and achingly gentle. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea, he murmured. The worst, she agreed. I don't care. Neither do I. They stood there, holding each other, pretending the world outside this room didn't exist. Pretending love was enough. For a while, it almost was. The next 3 weeks were stolen moments and secret smiles. Hands brushing at breakfast. Kisses in darkened hallways when Minjun was asleep. Conversations that stretched into early morning about everything and nothing. Zuri had never felt so alive, so seen, so dangerously happy. But the world outside didn't stop existing just because they ignored it. The article appeared on a gossip website first, then spread. Photos of them at the gala, questions about the mysterious African woman who'd captured the eligible billionaire, speculation about her motives, her background, whether this was love or strategy. Jae-sung tried to shield her from it, but the damage was done. She saw it in the eyes of the household staff, heard it in the carefully neutral voices of his business associates when they called, felt it in the weight of judgment pressing down from all sides. She could handle judgment. She'd been handling it her whole life. But then she overheard the conversation. Jin and another security guard, speaking in English for once, probably thinking she wasn't nearby. "Boss is making a mistake," the guard said. "This won't last. She's not from our world." "He knows that," Jin replied, "but he feels guilty about how they met, about her situation. He's trying to fix her life. By pretending to love her, that's cold, even for him. Not pretending. He cares. But caring isn't the same as building a life. Eventually, he'll see that. Eventually, she'll go back to wherever she came from, and things will go back to normal." Zuri stood frozen in the hallway, the words cutting deeper than any gossip column ever could. Because part of her had wondered the same thing. Part of her had feared that Jae-sung's feelings were born from guilt, from gratitude, from the same impulse that made him hire her in the first place. That night, she made her decision. She found Jae-sung in his study, surrounded by paperwork, still handsome in the lamplight. He smiled when he saw her, the smile that had become hers alone. "Zuri, come sit with me. I've been drowning in contracts all evening." "I'm resigning." The smile died. "What?" "I'm resigning. Effective immediately. I'll stay until you find a replacement for Minjun, but then I'm leaving." He stood slowly. "Because of the articles?" "Zuri, I told you we'd weather this. It's not the articles." Her voice was steady even as her heart shattered. "It's us. We both know this isn't sustainable. I'm your employee. I'm here on a work visa that you sponsored. Every bit of power in this relationship sits on your side, and eventually that will poison everything." "That's not true. We're equals." "Are we?" She met his eyes. "Can I quit without losing my visa, my housing? Can I disagree with you without wondering if it'll cost me my job? Can I ever be sure that what you feel is real and not just guilt dressed up as love?" He flinched. "You think I don't love you? I think you love the idea of me, the woman who saved your son, the redemption story. But I'm not a story, Jae-sung. I'm a person with my own dreams and my own life, and I can't keep sacrificing that to be your employee with benefits. Then don't be my employee. Quit. Stay anyway. As my partner. As what? Your girlfriend. Living in your house. Dependent on your money. While everyone whispers that I'm using you? How long before you start to wonder if they're right?" She was crying now, unable to stop the tears. "I care about you too much to watch us destroy each other. And I love Minjun too much to confuse him by staying when I shouldn't." Jae-sung looked broken, lost, like the man she'd first met. "Don't do this. Please. We can figure this out." "No, we can't. Because the world won't let us, and deep down, you know it." She took off the key to her quarters and set it on his desk. "I'll stay 2 more weeks. Find someone good for Minjun. Someone who'll love him the way he deserves. He loves you. I know. That's why I have to go before it hurts him more." She walked out before he could see her completely fall apart. The next 2 weeks were agony. Zuri threw herself into finding her replacement, interviewing candidates with Jae-sung's silent presence in the background. She prepared Minjun as gently as she could, telling him she had to leave, that she had her own dreams to chase, that this wasn't goodbye forever. He cried. God, he cried in a way that broke her into pieces. I don't understand, he sobbed into her shoulder. I thought you were happy here. I thought we were family. We are family, she whispered. Family doesn't stop being family just because people live in different places. But she wasn't sure she believed it. Jae-sung barely spoke to her during those final days. When he did, his voice was formal, distant, the walls rebuilt higher than ever. She told herself it was better this way, cleaner. She told herself a lot of lies. On her last night, she tucked Min-jun in one final time. The new companion, a kind older woman named Mrs. Song, waited respectfully in the hallway. I love you, Zuri told the boy. That will never change. You hear me? Never. I love you too, he whispered. Father's sad again. He won't say it, but I can tell. He'll be okay. You both will. But she didn't believe that either. She left early the next morning before Min-jun woke up. Couldn't handle another goodbye. Jin drove her to her new apartment, a tiny studio she'd found on the edge of the city, paid for with the savings from her months at the park house. As they pulled away, she didn't look back. 3 weeks passed, like years. Zuri found work at a non-profit, using her business degree finally, making a fraction of what Jae-sung had paid her, but earning it on her own terms. She built a life. Small, simple, hers. She told herself she was healing. Then Jin called. It's Min-jun, he said, without preamble. He's in the hospital. Zuri's world tilted. What happened? He stopped eating, stopped talking. The doctors say there's nothing physically wrong, but he's fading. He keeps asking for you. Where's Jae-sung? On a plane back from Singapore. He'll be here in 6 hours. But Zuri, Jin's voice cracked. That boy needs you now. Please. She was already grabbing her coat. Min-jun looked so small in the hospital bed, hooked up to monitors that beeped rhythmically. His eyes were closed, his face pale, and for one terrible moment, Zuri thought she was too late. Then his eyes opened. Zuri, I'm here, baby. I'm here. She took his hand, and his grip was weak, but real. What's going on? Why aren't you eating? It doesn't taste good anymore. Nothing's good anymore. You left, and Father's always angry. Sad, and I thought maybe if I got sick, you'd come back. Tears rolled down his cheeks. I'm sorry. I just missed you so much. Zuri's heart broke open. She climbed onto the bed, holding him carefully, mindful of the wires. Oh, sweetheart, no. You never have to hurt yourself to bring me back. I will always come when you need me. Always. Do you understand? Promise. I promise. She held him while he fell asleep, and she was still holding him when Jae-sung arrived like a storm. Hair disheveled, shirt wrinkled, eyes wild with fear. He stopped in the doorway when he saw them. Zuri. He's okay, she said softly. He's going to be okay. Jae-sung moved to the other side of the bed, touching his son's face with shaking hands. They said he wouldn't eat, wouldn't talk. I thought his voice broke. I thought I was losing him. You're not. But he needs you, Jae-sung, the real you, not the CEO or the provider, just his father. I don't know how to be just that. Yes, you do. You've always known. You're just scared. She looked at him across the sleeping child, seeing him clearly, seeing past her own hurt to his. I was wrong to leave the way I did, to give up so easily. But I was also right, that we can't keep pretending the problems don't exist. What problems? I love you. That's not pretend. I know. But love isn't enough if we're not equals. If I'm always dependent on you. If I can't stand on my own beside you instead of behind you. Then stand beside me, he said fiercely. Not as my employee, not as Min-jun's companion, as my partner, as my equal. Let me prove that I see you, Zuri. Not as a redemption story or a charity case or anything except the woman I love. How? Come back. Not to my house if that's not what you want. Keep your apartment. Keep your job. Build your life. But don't shut me out. Give me a chance to build something with you, not around you. Minjun stirred between them. Are you two fighting or making up? I can't tell. They both laughed, watery and relieved. Making up, Zuri said. Definitely making up. Good, because I need both of you, together, as a family. The real kind. Jae-sung met Zuri's eyes, over their son's head. What do you say? Can we try this? Really try? She thought about all the reasons to say no, about the gossip and the judgment, and the difficulty of building something real in the glare of his world. Then she thought about Minjun's smile and Jae-sung's rare laughter and the way she felt when they were together, like she'd finally found her place. On one condition, she said. You meet my mother. Properly. Face her expectations and her questions, and her very strong opinions about everything. He smiled, genuine and warm. I wouldn't have it any other way. 6 months later, Zuri stood in a garden filled with people from 2 worlds learning to become one. Her mother, flown in from Lagos, had interrogated Jae-sung for 3 hours and emerged declaring him acceptable. Barely. Minjun was the ring-bearer, taking his job with utmost seriousness, and Jae-sung waited at an altar, looking at her like she was his entire world. You're late, he said when she reached him, his eyes dancing. I'm right on time, she corrected. For this. For us. For love. He took her hands. I was late for my interview, he murmured. The one that was supposed to change my life. Turned out, I was running toward the wrong future. The right one found me when I stopped running. We both stopped running, Zuri said, and found each other instead. Minjun tugged on their joined hands. Does this mean we're officially a family now? They looked down at the boy who'd brought them together, who'd taught them both what love really meant. Yeah, sweetheart, Zuri said, pulling him into their embrace. We're officially a family. Later, when someone asked Zuri when she knew this was meant to be, she thought about that rainy day, about hearing a child cry and making the choice to stop, to help, to care, even when it cost her everything she thought she wanted. I was late for my interview, she said, but I was right on time for love. And she'd never been more grateful for terrible timing in her life. If this story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button to join our community of love story enthusiasts. Drop a comment telling us what moment resonated with you most. Was it when Zuri first heard Minjun crying? When Jae-sung finally admitted his feelings? Or the powerful ending where they became a family? And don't forget to like this video to help others find this beautiful journey of unexpected love. Thank you for being here and sharing in Zuri's story with us.